Welcome to the discussion for today, which is all around procrastination when it comes to money management. Because I know what happens a lot of the time is that we get caught up with everything else we need to do in our business, in our work, in our life. And when it comes to managing our money, so that means looking at our financial progress, whether it be financial statements or checking out the bank account or doing transactions, we just kind of get the feeling that we don't really want to do that. And that leads to the question of why are we procrastinating and what can we do to overcome it? So procrastination, sometimes, there can be different reasons. It can be we have a lack of faith in our abilities around how to do things correctly, allocating money for transactions in our accounts or whatever it is. It can be a lack of faith. It can be a fear around what it is that we might find when we have a closer look at our finances. It can be a really strong connection between money avoidance and as a response and what we believe to be true about money. So there can be a few reasons around why we might procrastinate. We might be really busy and not see what sort of an impact it can have. So how do we overcome that? That is the next question. We overcome this by looking at what it is that we really want to achieve. I'll help you understand what I mean by giving you an example. So I learned to drive in a really small town, and there was no roundabout, there was no traffic lights, there was very little traffic. There was a couple of stop signs, and that was about it. So my skills around driving were, let's be honest, they were quite mediocre. I didn't drive in lots of different conditions. And so I then moved to the city and I relied on public transport for quite a while. I was able to live in a higher density area and trains and buses did the trick until I moved to an area where it was really important that I actually get a car for myself. So I did buy myself a car and I was thinking about, okay, so I was at home, I had work to do. I was actually doing some business work then, even though I'm talking years ago. Yes, I had business back then. Had this car. And then the question was, how do I drive? It seems like a small question, but how do I drive to the shopping mall and get this office stationery that I need for my business? I have a client who really needs some materials and I've got to deliver on what I've promised. And so I've got to go and get this office stationery. So knowing my skill level, I was actually quite frightened. I was really nervous about getting in the car and driving on my own with no guidance. So I really thought about simply not doing it. If I don't get in that car, I can stay at home and I don't feel that anxiety and I don't have to worry about it. Of course, the cost is that I don't deliver to a client. And that was really important to me, that I delivered to the client what I'd promised. So my why was bigger than the discomfort of getting in the car and driving. And I have to be honest, that driving experience, I still remember it today. I thought I was a little bit rusty on the driving. I was, let's say, I still had a lot to learn. I drove into this area. I'd never driven in multiple lanes, traffic lights, all that sort of thing. I drove in, and the truth is, I found how I should do what I needed to do based on people beeping their horns at me. If people were beeping their horns at me, I needed to do the opposite of whatever it was I was doing at the time. So as you can imagine, that was pretty nerve-wracking, but still, I was determined to go and do what I needed to do. I went in, I parked at the mall, I got the office supplies, and then I drove out with a few more beeps, but I got home in one piece, and I had the stationery that I needed. So you can imagine how what was driving me or what was my motivation was far more important than the discomfort of going through that experience. Now, if we look at my driving now, I'm not going to claim to be the best driver in the world, but it is automatic for me. I drive without, I certainly pay attention, I make sure I'm not crashing into anyone, but I drive without that level of anxiety. It is almost second nature. It is so much easier to drive now. So this is exactly what can happen with our money management. Once we have the systems in place, we understand what we're trying to achieve. Yes, we may still have initially that emotions coming up where we don't feel like looking at our finances, where we feel we have that competing priorities, where we might not want to address it. We might have that fear. We might have that lack of faith in our skills, whatever it is that might come up. But if we have thought through the outcome that we want to achieve, we're really clear on what our priorities are, what is most important, what's going to move the needle in our business and in building our wealth and our financial well-being. So it reflects in how we support all the other parts of our life. If we're clear on the impact that we want to make with our money, then these small steps, as uncomfortable as they might be to start with, can be overcome by focusing on those outcomes. So that is my small share of wisdom for today, but I do hope you understand that absolutely once you're clear on what it is that you want to achieve, then you can become unstoppable in doing these little things that might seem like a bit of a chore. We can start to build on those. We take those actions and we can start to actually find that they might actually be enjoyable over time. Of course, you can always outsource a little bit of it, but ultimately you are still the one who, going with that driving analogy, is in the driver's seat. So I will leave you with that. You're in the driver's seat and there is certainly always a way. I wish you a wonderful week and let's check in and see how you go in applying these insights. All the best.